Hey y'all, Flipper Fred here, and today I have something that's just a little extra special. This is one that I have been kind of hiding and holding on to for about 6 months now because I don't know, it's a weird thing. I was worried that if I shared it, some of the magic of this thing might go away. But I'm going to do it anyhow because it's just honestly too good not to. So if you don't recognize this, if you're not a big Spyderco fan, this is the Spydiechef. It is a design by a guy by the name of 𝗗𝗜𝗦𝗖𝗟𝗔𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗥. I did look that up and how to pronounce it, SLYSZ. It was designed in 2016, and we'll talk about him and look at maybe one or two of the other knives that he has also designed. But before we get started and take a look at the good, the bad, the ugly, if you would please, down below here, it would just mean the world to me. If you could hit that subscribe button, maybe even the notification bell, and listen, if you're thinking about maybe bailing out early on the video, go ahead and give me that thumbs up. Your boy Fred needs a little love on the YouTubes here, so I appreciate that, y'all. Before we get into the knife, really, let's take a quick peek at the box. I always like to do that. This is clearly a standard stock Spyderco box that it came in. You can see it has some beautiful Chinese writing on it. This is obviously a clone. Probably should have mentioned that right out of the get-go. I'm in a clone phase right now. Yes, I realize I could have bought several knives that are not clones for the same amount of money, but thanks, y'all. I appreciate that. I'm just in a phase right now. So anyhow, here's the bottom of the box. You can see they did have some kind of sticker that does say it is the Spydiechef. I just put my own label so I can keep my boxes sorted. Otherwise, pretty plain Jane and standard fare box. Y'all, I played with this thing for about 20 minutes trying to peel it off. I'm like, man, this sticker doesn't work. The sticker doesn't come off. So before your boy Fred realized, yeah, it's not a sticker. It's just a piece of paper. So if y'all got one of these that's a sticker, let me know down in the comments. I'll be pissed because I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. Here's something cool. Unlike most of these knockoff Spydercos that I get, this one actually came with the real pamphlet. So I am very excited about that. You can see this is, in fact, all about the Spydiechef and 𝗗𝗓𝗦𝗖𝗟𝗔𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗥, as I mentioned. That's his name right there. A little bit about the history. This knife was designed in 2016 by this guy. So I was kind of happy and excited, unusually, that the right pamphlet for the knife came in the box. I thought, well, that was pretty cool. And here's kind of my overall experience. So this is that whole knife journey that you hear a lot of people talking about, where you start off with maybe that $10, bug out clone, and you play with it a little bit, and you say, you know what, this is actually decent. It's not bad. Let me see what else you got out there. And then maybe you try, a lightweight Para 3 knockoff, and you say, hey, this is kind of cool. You know what, I never was into these Spydercos before, but that's an interesting little design. I kind of like this. And you begin to, work your way up until here you are buying $50 and $60 full titanium knockoffs. And that's precisely what we have here. But I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, this knife is really good. Let's take a look at the size comps. It's always hard on a video like this to try to get your sizes judged. So if you are a Spyderco person, I'm going to try to line these up on the ass end here of these knives. If you're a Spyderco person, you will recognize the Paramilitary 2 and the Para 3. You can see this knife comes right in between those two. So obviously the PM2 is about, a half inch longer, and the Para 3 is about equally shorter, maybe a half, 3/4 inch. So right in between those two. If that gives you a good sense, if you are a Spyderco person, maybe you're a Benchmade person, let's take a look at a Benchmade comparison. You might have a full-size Crooked River, considerably larger than this boy, and or a bug out, which is quite similar in size, again, like the Para 3, maybe about a half inch shorter or so. Roughly the same handle and grip size on that. So maybe that'll give you. Let me show you one more interesting comp that we're going to be taking a look at on an upcoming video. This knife was designed and built in 2019 by a totally different designer, guy by the name of 𝗗𝗓𝗦𝗖𝗟𝗔𝗜𝗠𝗥. Again, this one, the Spydiechef, was done in 2016, was redone in 2019. They updated it a little bit for the lock bar and a few other little minor bits on there, but not anything significant. And then in 2019, this 𝗗𝗓𝗦𝗖𝗟𝗔𝗜𝗠𝗥 knife came along. I'll swap spots. The perspective tends to make them look longer or shorter based on whether it's in front or behind. As you can obviously see, very similar design philosophies here. Very, very similar. Both kind of a nice sheep's foot blade. The Spydiechef, a little bit taller of a blade, obviously in all titanium, whereas the 𝗗𝗜𝗦𝗧𝗏, which is what this is, not sure if I even shared that name, the 𝗗𝗏𝗏, beautifully milled. We're going to do a review on this bad boy coming up next here in one of the next couple of videos. Also milled on the carbon fiber. This is a phenomenal knife, also incredibly expensive, and ended up, I think, getting shut down because just people weren't quite willing to spend the money. But beautiful knife, very, very similar in size. All right, let's bring up the specs here. I'm going to bring the specs up on the left side of the screen so we can take a look at what we're dealing with here. So you can see the green check marks mean our version. I did get this one on Temu, by the way. In almost all regards, you can see all the way down the line, the open length, 7.78, the blade length of 3.32, the closed, the blade thickness came in the same, the handle thickness came in the same. It's a satin full flat blade, does have the titanium scales. The obviously big difference here is this is not going to be an LC200N steel. So LC200N is like one of the most impervious to rust-resistant steels there are. It's basically rust-proof. It's about as close as you can get, even more so than Magna Cut. You do trade off a little bit of maybe edge retention and toughness in order to get that. But if you're looking for a knife that can go anywhere, saltwater friendly, this is your knife. Unfortunately, they still put steel hardware on the real thing, which is weird, but they do have aftermarket kits you can buy to replace all of the hardware, which is exactly what I'm going to do when I buy my real version of this Spydiechef. So what did I get here? I believe this is either a D2 or a 9CR18 MOV. Those are a little bit better than like an 8CR or a 5CR that you would typically get in the cheaper versions. What I have discovered, and I've talked to some of the guys at OK Knives as well who do sell a lot of these, is that when you go up to the higher price, the $50, $60, $70 models that are full titanium, they do tend to use the better steel on their blades. Better being, D2 or 9CR18, which is actually even more rust resistant than a D2 steel, maybe at the cost of a little bit of edge retention. So always trade-offs when it comes to the steels there. Mine came in a little bit heavier. That was a curious thing because all of the specs are so dead on with the original, but for some reason I got about 0.2 of an ounce heavier. That could potentially be the blade. I'm not sure about the LC200. Would that be a lighter steel perhaps? It could. That could possibly explain it. These are, of course, all frame locks, and the price you can see is a huge difference. The real one, you could go to Blade HQ right now and buy it at $303. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to go do that, and I got mine for $63.99. I'm going to round that up. We'll call it $64. I bought mine again on Temu. So this is one of those things that just showed up out of the blue one day. I'm a big Temu shopper. I have been. I'm kind of moving away from that now. It's gotten difficult and it's really hard to find any Spydercos on Temu right now. But I saw this and it said titanium scales. And at the time, there had been no other really decent knives come out in titanium. And so I thought, whoa, gosh, do I want to blow $64 gambling on this? And that's what these are. All of these knockoff clones are a gamble. You have to be willing to lose the money and get a knife that's just not a high-quality knife. And so I said, you know what? I'll do that. I'll take that gamble. Spent $64, and I can't tell you how happy I am with this. We'll talk about more of that as we go along. Let's talk about the hardware. Is all accurate on this thing. So you have T8 for the pivot screws. This is a captive pivot with a D-shaped pivot on this side. T6 hardware for the back of the frame here. All of that is standard fare. You do have the same kind of spacers in the back and a lanyard hole in there. It's a very solid lockup. So this is titanium on steel. There is no steel insert on the lock bar. If you've done any, this is true to the original. Okay, I'm going to try to get this at a good angle. I'm going to let you judge about how locked up you think that is. I'm going to call it about 60%. However, I have done lots of spine whacking. Please don't do that with your knife. That would be incredibly stupid if you didn't already know the outcome, because that blade comes back. If you get your hand over here, say bye-bye to that piece of meat. At any rate, it is a very solid lockup, albeit titanium on steel. I will say at the beginning of owning this knife, it did have quite a bit of lock stick, which is not unusual at all when you have titanium on steel like that. However, after, probably what is now several thousand flips, it has really gone away. I'm not seeing any lock stick, almost any at all anymore. All right, so no jimping. That's one of the interesting things. Now, this is true to the original. The original had no jimping. I consider this to be a very minimalist, even industrial look, with the plain flat titanium scales, the plain satin blade, almost no market. Well, there's a ton of branding on here. And by the way, while we're on the topic of branding, this is very true to the original. So a lot of these that I have reviewed really mess up the logos, in particular the writing, where they put it in the style and fonts that they use. This one is almost indistinguishable from the real thing. You've got your maker's mark there. You see if I can get that in a good light. Taichung, Taiwan. This is all true to form. It's in the right place. It's in the right size. So if you were to put this side by side with the real thing, you would have a very hard time not knowing this was in fact a fake or a clone. So, yeehaw for that. That's unfortunate in some ways and fortunate in others. You buy it knowing you're getting a clone, but that would make it easy for somebody to try to sell this to a person who doesn't know any better, and that is a crying shame. I do hate that they're able to just totally knock off the branding, the logos, and all that, and I know I get tons of comments about it. I appreciate all of those thoughts and well wishes from you guys. I know what I'm doing. I'm just in a phase right now. I have all of the other good knives that are just as inexpensive by brands that aren't knocking anything off. I appreciate that. I do, and man, I don't in any way want to see American companies get hurt. I don't think people who are only going to spend $60 on one of these knives is likely to be a buyer. However, the reverse has happened, and I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, me being one. This is one of those knives that has made me a Spyderco buyer. I am going to buy the real thing in this. I don't know how I'm going to do it because it's $300, and your boy Fred here doesn't have $300 to drop on one knife, but I'm going to have to figure it out because this knife is that good. So let's talk about one of the major differences between this, and this may be how a real buyer might know the difference. The real version of these knives runs on bronze phosphor washers. However, this one here runs on bearings. These are kind of the open face bronze little ceramic bearings. I'll put up a picture of me. I took it apart to clean it out and lubricate it up, and so that makes this thing just smooth as glass. And one of the things that I really loved about this knife was the action. The action on these bearings, albeit cheap bearings, is just so glassy smooth. I will sit here, I can't tell you how many hours I have lost sitting at my desk just flipping this thing, because bringing it home and that little slide right there is so smooth, it's so glassy. I know it's impossible to come through on a video, but that's part of the magic of this knife, that I didn't even want to share it. I didn't even want to show people that I had this knife just because it feels so good in the hand, and that action is beautiful. I will say something that's a little interesting. The detent ball is very late, so this is fully locked out, right? I'm going to try to hold the bottom steady. Right here is where it gets to that detent ball, so it travels all this way. If you've noticed, I have to get it past here before I can shake it on closed. That's to get it past that detent ball, which is very late. So just interesting, not a big deal, certainly not a deal breaker to me in any way. Blade play is actually, you got two things going on with blade play. Because of the steel on titanium on the lock, if I don't put any pressure on that lock bar, I can get a little bit of wiggle right there in that blade plate. It's actually not doing, there we go. A little tiny bit right there. But the moment you put your finger on that, it's now locked up solid. No up, down in any direction, regardless of whether or not you're touching the lock bar. But, I got to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, and that is the case. So when you have that out, no finger touching your lock bar, there's just a tad play right there. So is that a deal breaker for me? Absolutely not. This knife is way too smooth otherwise for that to become an issue. The blade is centered, comes out. Let me see if I can get it. It came out nicely centered. It's actually looks like it might be a hair off. I did just take it apart and lube it and clean it up, so that may be me. I just need to adjust my pivot screw a hair, but it, for the most part, is centered up. Plenty centered for me. This is obviously a full flat ground blade. It is very slicey. Let's grab a piece of paper here just to show you. This thing is going to cut all day long. Beautiful. This is actually one of the sharpest knockoff knives that I have received. And I've cut stuff with this too. I have stropped it back, but just very lightly a few times on a leather strop. But I've cut boxes and all kinds of office warrior type tasks. Haven't done any food prep with it yet. That's something that, you know, obviously Spydiechef was designed to do. But man, this thing is slicey. It is comfortable in the hand. Didn't talk about the clip. This clip is interesting. So the design choice they made on the clip, look at how it angles this way. And I had wondered about that. But like when you put this in your pocket, so let's pretend this is your pocket, and you've got this, well, it's going to be almost impossible. Because of that angle, what it does is it tilts the knife this way to this way. It kind of pushes it up against the side of your pocket. Obviously, I'm right-handed. This is a right-handed side clip, although it is reversible, which is cool. Yeehaw for that. But because of that angle, what it does is it pushes that knife over there into the side. Did the same thing on the SPY Bowie knife, which I just did another review on. That video should be available somewhere on the channel. You can see both of these clips went in that direction. So I thought that was just an interesting design choice. It's true to the original, but that just makes it even more comfortable, easy to carry. It is definitely not too heavy in any way. We didn't even mention the sheep's foot blade. Beautiful, tall sheep's foot, easy to get down for drag cutting tasks like that. Certainly easy in a pinch grip if you've got to slice or do some carving, anything like that. Full-handed grip, albeit no jimping. That's very comfortable still for your finger, for your thumb there. I have a size large glove, so you can see plenty of space on the grip for even extra large and double XL hands. Almost every position you'll hold this in, it is just very comfortable, despite the fact that it's just kind of flat, solid titanium. They have done a great job. You can see chamfering all the edges, knocked down. They've got the cutout hole, which makes it easy to get to the flipper. A lot of people have complained, I didn't mention this, on the back side, you can see the lock bar does cover that flipper hole. My hands, again, I have semi-skinny fingers, have no problem getting in there. If you've been watching this video, most of the video, I have been opening it with the traditional Spydie flick. So for me, that's never been a problem. I know for some people, they have had an issue with that. Just be aware of that. If this was the real thing, this would be the Mac Daddy in my book. This is my style. It fits me perfectly. I love the industrial design aesthetic. I know that's not for everybody. I love the sheep's foot blade. Designed in such a way you can do cutting tasks and get your finger underneath that when you're working in that direction there. If it was real LC200N, this would almost be completely impervious to rust. What you would need to do is swap out, and that's what I'll do. There's aftermarket titanium screws that I would replace in here, and then it's just a solid block of titanium and LC200. Nothing there is going to rust. Suits me perfect. I'm in a bit of a more wet climate, certainly down here in the south. We get very a lot of hot, sweaty afternoons, very high humidity here. So overall, I love this knife. Here's the irony. I already said I'm going to get a real one of these things. And the real irony is I'm worried that will the real one feel as good and have as smooth an action as this one? Obviously, the real one's going to be running on bronze phosphor washers. I know that'll take a while to break in. But my goodness, y'all, I just sit here all day and drop that blade home like that. It's hard to explain how glassy smooth that is. Yeehaw for that. So, would I recommend this knife? I don't want to recommend any knockoffs to anybody. You have to know what you're buying. This is a crapshoot. You could buy one of these and it could suck. It could be horribly done, no quality control. Maybe I just got lucky on this one that everything works so incredibly well and smooth and it feels good and it looks good and it's got a good solid lockup, the action. I might have just won the knockoff lottery for that. I don't know. But I'll tell you, the one I got, is pretty darn good. Again, this is what turned me into a Spyderco buyer right here. I've said that on several videos. This is the one that did it right here. I absolutely have to find a way to get this. If anybody wants to donate one to your boy Fred, I would be forever grateful for that. So there you go. Again, if you would, please just take a moment. If I've done you right, down below here, hit that subscribe button, maybe even the notification bell. You help your boy Fred out a lot. I really need some help on these YouTubes, y'all. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me here today, and I will see you on the next one. Y'all take care.